So much about learning to paint is becoming comfortable with the supplies that we use. The pigments, the palette, the brushes, the paper. It takes a while to put together a good palette, to choose the correct colors, and getting comfortable with using the different paints on your palette to get all the different shades of color that you need. Today I'm going to talk to you about my watercolor palette and show you how I have each of my pigments laid out and what I use these pigments for. Here is a look at my palette. Let's go ahead and open this. I love this palette because of this large mixing area. The more room that you have to mix on your palette, the easier that it becomes to create stronger mixtures. And this is really important when you're trying to get the correct values in your painting, especially in that middle value part of the painting where we need to maybe pre-mix a few colors and we need to paint with some stronger mixtures. Let's start over here and we'll move our way around the palette and I'll explain to you what I use each one of these pigments for. Down here in this corner, this is Opera Pink. If I need a bright little pop of color, this Opera Pink is a nice color for that. Cadmium Yellow. I can use this bright yellow to create some very vibrant greens. That's Cadmium Red. Little highlights of red around the painting I would use for that. Same thing with Cadmium Orange. I use sparingly every now and then. Ras Sienna Light. That is a lighter version of Ras Sienna. Rose Madder Permanent. This is pretty similar to Alizarin Crimson. I like how it mixes with Ras Sienna, so usually I'm using that in a mixture with some other pigments. Ras Sienna. This color I use in every single painting. It's probably the well on my palette that I refill the most. If there's a warm color on my painting, it's probably going to include some Ras Sienna. Now I'm getting into some of my earth tones. The first one of those is Burnt Sienna. That's a nice pigment. I use it in a lot of different mixtures for a lot of different subjects. Raw Umber, a deeper brown earth tone. I'll use that in other green mixtures, or if I need to mix in the color of sand or dirt. This here is Qurum Gold, and it looks a little dull on my palette, but it's probably the most powerful, bright color that I have. If I need to mix up some very vibrant, rich, kind of glowing tree color in the sunlight, I might use Qurum Gold. If I'm painting a sunset, if I really need some punch of color, Qurum Gold is really good for that. Now you only need a little bit because, like I said, it is a very strong pigment. It can take over your mixtures very quickly, but you can use a little bit of that to create a very rich, vibrant, warm color. Cobalt Turquoise. This is what I use in combination with some other colors to mix all of my greens. So Cobalt Turquoise with Ras Sienna, that is my most common base color of green for trees. I usually start there and then I can warm or cool it up after I have that mixture. Cobalt Teal Blue, it's a nice cooler color I can mix in to some of my mixtures. I actually use it a little bit in skies. If I want the blue color to just lean a little bit towards the green side, I can use a little bit of that. Cerulean is a beautiful blue color, and what's nice about that is it works well in combination with some other blues if you're mixing a sky, but I really like how it granulates once it dries, and that's a really beautiful part about watercolor. And you can get a lot of granulation in most brands of cerulean. Here I have Lavender. It's a beautiful color. I like mixing it into different varieties and combinations of blues. I include it in skies. A beautiful combination that I like is lavender mixed with burnt sienna. That's a nice combination. So a lot of this developing your palette is just experimenting, seeing what you like, seeing what mixtures you like, and just over time you can find that right collection of colors for you. Here is another one that I use all the time, and that is Cobalt Blue. It's a really nice blue. When you think of the color blue, Cobalt Blue is that color of blue that pops into your head. A more rich, stronger version of blue is Ultramarine Blue. I use Cobalt probably more than I use Ultramarine, but again, it's another combination of blue. It adds a little bit of variety to the cooler areas of my painting. Ultramarine Blue is a good foundation for a really strong dark. This is neutral tint. Neutral tint you can mix in with any of these other colors to create a darker version of that color. If I need really strong mixtures, I can use neutral tint to build up that strong mixture. I don't like to use colors by themselves. Often they look too saturated. If I create a mixture and I want to just take the edge off of the color a little bit, I can use neutral tint to do that and not make it look so saturated in my painting. I have another pigment that's very similar to that, Payne's Gray. You can use it in the same way that you use neutral tint. It's more shaded towards the cool side. Neutral tint is a little bit warmer. And those are just some other versions of lavender and cerulean from a different brand that I was trying out. That is all the colors on my palette, and I hope that you found that helpful. Your collection of pigments that you use when you paint is something that might change over time. I have a standard set of pigments that I normally use, but occasionally I'm trying something new, and there are a few pigments that come and go, that don't stick on my palette long term. I hope that you found this information helpful, and it can help speed things up when you're trying to put together your own palette. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? You ever had that experience? You just are having a hard time finding consistency. Some of your paintings turn out, some of your paintings don't turn out, and you're not really sure why. Well, I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone, you could print it out, and you can take a look at these crucial planning steps before you start each painting to ensure that you're thinking through these important things as you get started. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.